Hello and welcome back to Talk Seagulls. And I'm back in the Earth and Stars again. And oh my gosh, it just doesn't seem to be much easier, does it, now doing these? We've lost again against Brentford 4-2. Somehow making it worse on the run that I thought I was trying to be a little bit positive about, but plenty of discourse to get into for sure. But I'm back joined by Luke again. As Jim, mate, so good last time. I just had to get you on again. Not because you were the only option or anything like that. I'm just joking. How are you?
All good, mate. Yeah, it's been a up and down sort of weekend. We had a absolutely crap game, to be honest. Made better by WrestleMania. Brilliant.
Yeah, you're a WrestleMania fan.
I haven't stopped talking about it since he got here, and he's just like, I don't know anything about it. I'm like, not my problem, mate. I'm not going to shut up
He thinks
about
wrestling's real. That's enough for me.
Yeah, still real to me.
Yeah, I'm not a WrestleMania person, but I did appreciate the Pokemon card the other day. That was a nice purchase. That's my payment terms. But yeah, let's actually talk about the reason that we're here, and that is, yeah, it's another game where it's not been great to watch. It wasn't just the defeat, but it was probably the manner of the defeat, which was quite hard to watch, apart from maybe about 5 to 10 minutes after the red card that João Pedro got. But before we get into the sort of gist of it, like between when we spoke last week to now, it feels like a lot of the things that we went over seem to come true again. It's like an ongoing theme.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I wasn't at the game, you were, but from what I've heard, we were not really the greatest you've ever seen. Ryan has gone very much into detail about how poor he thought we were. And watching over the highlights, every single goal was, well, I mean, not the last one, but the first three just sort of ball through, ball over the top, something like that. And it's just the same thing over and over again that we just not seeming to be able to deal with.
Yeah, it was quite interesting when Fabian Hürzeler tried to defend his decision, because this is the first time, and Brett Mendoza rightly called it out, and he said that it's probably the first time that the away end has really turned against the manager. I think, especially in the last 10 years, maybe since Hippio was here. I can't really recall. I mean, it went a bit toxic, didn't it, under Houghton for a bit at the end, but I wouldn't say that everyone was calling for his head as such. Like, the people were saying maybe he's run his course, but they still appreciate the fact he was a legend, I suppose. But I think this is the first time in the away end that for a long time I can remember people just really not being happy. And I mean, it was boos for his substitutions. There was a lot of chance of you don't know what you're doing when Danny Welbeck was substituted for Yasin Ayari. And this is the point that you sort of mentioned. But Fabian Hürzeler defended that substitution effectively by saying, yeah, we tried to get more control of the midfield because that's where they're being so overrun, which is a fair point to make. But then you do leave yourself very, very light when you're down to 10 men already without João Pedro. You know, trying to bolster the midfield is a good decision. But then you think, if he's only seeing that now, his whole ethos and his whole tactics over the last, this season has been emptying the midfield and not using these midfielders, which I've banged on about all season. Why have we now only just realised, hang on a minute, we keep getting beaten on transition, let's put another midfielder in when we're 10 men down? I
don't understand, really. It's, a stupid decision, especially when you've got João Pedro off. What are we really going to do going forward?
Yeah.
Then? Like, I know if you're being overrun, fair enough, like, fine. But who's going to be going forward? I don't know who.
Mitoma obviously scored.
Yeah,
and that's, it did come in that period of just after that substitution. And that was, a good probably 5 minutes where we did actually control the game a little bit more. But probably the still frustration on a fan's point of view was, and especially on my point of view, was it just didn't feel like they wanted it at all. That's been a bit of a theme of the last few weeks.
Yeah, we did speak about it last week, just not seeming like they want it. It was the same against Palace. Forest as well was a complete same. Just didn't seem like anyone really. It just doesn't seem like there's really that fight. And it, as a fan, that's obviously what you want to see. Even if you go down you're down to 10 men, you're 3-1 down at the time. Why don't you just go for it?
I mean, don't get me wrong, we did have that fight back for a bit, and I think that's where I sort of thought, okay, maybe we've identified something, but it didn't last anywhere near long enough for me to really be convinced that was the right decision. And I talk about the rest of not just the game, but in general, I say that it felt like the players didn't want it. But it was that first half for me where, and I'll explain for you, it felt like walking pace football, right? And the goal from Mbeumo seemed to come really, really easily in that, as you say, it was a very direct ball to him. It would run through the middle of the defence. And you could easily see where we're being exploited. And that was completely down the middle. It begs the question as to what Aaron Cashin possibly has actually done wrong. I mean, yes, okay, he had a terrible debut, but you've just spent 10, 15 million on this guy. And we're so shaky in defence and so shaky in midfield. It just makes you think, okay, if you're going to then start going on about, oh, let's stop par midfield, let's do this. I thought, even like go crazy and just put 3 at the back. Why can't we just alter it a little bit? And then you get an extra man to midfield. Then you can invert your fullbacks and put them into midfield. You got players like Jack Hinchwood who's played right back for weeks. And we put Matt Sweefer at right back and put Hinch in the middle. It was baffling to me, right?
It's a weird selection. When I saw that Vifa was playing, I was quite happy because I felt like he'd been pretty good like when he'd played. But when I saw that he was going right back, I was just a bit like, what's going on? Because I mean, we clearly haven't seen the best of him. I don't think, but I don't know what he has to do to get a game in his actual position. Like, fair enough, like Hinch has been playing out of position, like in right back for a while. Happy that he's back in midfield. He's played in his natural position, but we spent this money on Vifa, and we just don't seem to want to use him. And like, granted, he was shaky at the start, I think. But as I say, I think he's sort of grown into it, and he's looked pretty good when he's played. I don't know how. I'm not too sure how he was the other day, but it does beg the question, what's he done as well? Like, you talk about Cashin, what's he done wrong to not get in the team? But what's Vifa done wrong to not get in his normal position?
It's a bit of a strange one for me when I mean, obviously Hinchwood's been right back for quite a long time. I think he started his career obviously at right back for us when De Zerbi was here. So I get why you'd want to have him in midfield, but when you've got a player that's been quite experienced at playing that position, whether or not he's been in good form for the last few weeks, which he probably would say he hasn't, but you're still losing that positional sense, and you're sacrificing again a player that realistically can help with that midfield, not crisis, but gives you a little bit more muscle in there. In these transitions, when you've got players like Mbeumo and Wissa who are so good, especially when it's coming forward at pace, with the ball at their feet, I don't think there's many that are better with him than Mbeumo this season. He's been superb for them.
Yeah.
And, he's probably one of them that could easily get a big move. But I thought we almost just, again, we're playing into their hands. I mean, it feels like a bit of a recurring theme where we're almost playing into their hands. I mean, you said last week about Leicester. It felt like we were just letting them play.
Yeah, literally. We seem to do that quite a lot. That's what I've noticed. And again, especially the past few weeks, we just seem to let teams play around us. Like, we have these chances to kick the ball forward from like Verbruggen, say, and he holds onto it for ages and doesn't move it about, or passes it to, say, Dunk or Van Hecker. They pass it around the back when we could just be getting forward quicker. We don't have any sort of threat on the counter, I've noticed, unless
we've got really, really good wingers.
I know, like, you have Minter, who's one of the quickest players in the league.
Yeah.
And his work rate's ridiculous getting up and down the pitch. So going back to like the formational like talk we were having, like, why not put him, say, as you say, 3 at the back, and then have Minter as like a, sort of like that wing back role? Because I mean, he's shown he can get up and down the pitch. He's shown he can actually do good work defensively. So I don't get why you don't just do that, especially against a team like that. You need. I feel like you sort of need to hold that sort of low line, because they're going to play exactly like they did.
Yeah. And they've in themselves, Brentford have got a very, very solid team. And what Thomas Frank does there is what he does very, very well. And that's making this team a very, very difficult one to beat. And actually that midfield, I think it was Norgard, I think he's just having a bit of one of them. They've had Damsgaard as well. Very underrated players, I think, in my opinion. Brentford know how to control that. They know what to do. But what was strange is they actually hadn't won a game at home in 8 before this game. Dr. Brighton striking again, helping out, right? And I just think, like, we've come to accept this now. And this is sort of the conversation I wanted to bring up to you, right? And I was talking to James from Dogma after the game, and it was a really interesting chat. You know, it was quite, lighthearted. We were having a little bit of a conversation with a beer on the Thames. What more can you want, right?
Yeah.
I think he hit it pretty well in that, I don't know if you agree, Brighton are almost having a bit of an identity crisis. We're in a situation where, and we mentioned it briefly last time, where you've got the fans that want to hold on to the past and you've got the fans that are moving on, right? Fine. But you've also got the club's point of view, where it feels like you get rid of your managers and whatever, you move on to what we're at now. Do you feel like we're maybe a little bit scared to take that next jump this season? Do you feel like it's maybe a little bit more of an ask maybe than we thought it could have been? And the Brighton that could be is not quite being allowed to be, if that makes sense.
It does look like we're holding ourselves back a bit. As I say, mentioned with like not going forward or anything. It's just we look so slow at times. And you look at the players we got: Pedro, Minter, Mitoma, and Welbeck as well, because he's so good at holding the ball up, and getting it out, like passing it into those channels and that. It's baffling to me the fact that we don't take advantage of that more often. And as I've already said, we let teams play around us. We play into teams' tactics, such as like Brentford and Leicester, for example. It's frustrating as a fan watching it, and we need to sort it out. If I'm completely honest, because
but when you say sort it out, do you mean tactically, or do you mean in terms of where we're at as a club? Like I feel like we're so close. We're so close. We can see how good this team could be. And I think that's what's driving me mad, because we're that close away, genuinely, from being such a good side. And it feels like we're just not doing it, because I don't know whether there's a bit of reservation. I don't know whether there's a bit of a scare, thinking, oh my God, hang on. We've just gone from being a side in relegation to a team that's now battling for Europe every year. And it's all well and good putting the statements out at the beginning of the year, we want to get Europe again. But then you can't then change that narrative halfway through. You can't then start thinking, oh, well, let's take another gamble, because you can afford to make mistakes here. And that's what's, for me, you can't afford to make mistakes here if you want to be taken seriously. So you need to then decide, are you a place where you can make mistakes? You can raise these players for Chelsea to keep buying? Do we become this profit club that, we buy a player, we sell him for high, and that's it? Is that what we're going to be? Are we going to be the Borussia Dortmund of England? Or do you want us to go and actually build something and win?
We need to push on. I feel like this season was the perfect time to do it. You talk about this identity crisis and not really knowing where we're at or what we're doing. We really need to sort that out, I think, especially before the end of the season. We still have this chance at getting Europe. Mainly,
it's still really on.
Yeah, mainly for the fact that Fulham and Bournemouth both dropped points this weekend, but we can't rely on everyone else, and that's what we're doing now. We're relying on everyone else. You look at how we were for those games before Forest, and we were controlling games. We were unbeaten for 6 or 7, was it?
6 games. Yeah. 7 unbeaten,
It's ridiculous to me seeing how we are now. We look like we're playing every single game like we were against Forest, and we're 7-0. It's mental to see how much the heads have dropped. You talk about identity crisis. There's a confidence crisis, I think, as well. Dunk, we touched on it last week, not being the Lewis Dunk we know. I don't think that's helping.
No.
Because you got this big voice, massive leader, our club captain, doesn't look up to it.
It doesn't even look. I don't know. This could just be me reading too much into it, but I'm watching the players, the attitude. You want to see it. Like we've seen with Dunk for all these years. We know that it matters to him, but why does it not look like it matters to him now?
Yeah,
and that's. It just doesn't. Something is just off for me. The whole vibe is not right. And as you say, we're a point or two off Europe. It helps that these teams are dropping points around us. But why am I sat here on a podcast getting more emotional about it, and you're getting more emotional about it as a fan than I've seen any emotion out of any of them players, managers, any of them for the last 4 weeks. Why don't they think that 1 point off Europe is worth playing for?
They don't seem like they want it, which is, again, what's pissing us off as fans is the fact that we're watching this. We know we're that close. We know we can get Europe, but it just doesn't look like we will. When for like large parts of the season we've been quite good. I know we've been a bit shaky. It's been like sort of up. It's
but
been
we're good
sort of
enough
up and down.
to get wins over the line, and that's what I could accept. I thought, okay, even if we're not playing a beautiful style football, and we're just gonna have to go for it for a year and then reassess our option in the summer. If it got us over the line, then fine. But it feels like football's almost correcting itself now. And okay, it's not helped by the injuries. I can accept that too. But what we've got to remember is the injury crisis last season was very bad in the sense that we didn't have players to replace with. For example, if we lost Solly March, we'd be bringing in a Dingra who was not anywhere near really first team level at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Same across the whole team, right? We were very, very makeshift for large portions. I can accept the fact we've got injuries now, but I still think that starting 11 on that pitch for Brentford for the last few games is easily capable of winning those games. I didn't think Brentford had to, again, I feel like I'm saying this every week, but I don't feel like Brentford had to work particularly hard for this. I said that after Palace, I said that after Leicester, I said that after Villa. It doesn't feel like we're making teams work for it. And yeah, this is probably the most real I've been about this season on this podcast, but I think you can't just keep looking over it and saying, no, it's fine. Because there seems to be some serious problems there. Like you can't just keep having the same scenario, the same conversation coming up without thinking, hang on a minute, what's going wrong?
Well, you say, we've not had to make teams work for it. You look at some of the goals we conceded the other day, just one ball over the top, one ball forward. And that happened against Villa, like twice. It's predictable as well. This is the thing. You can, like, say when we go 1-0 down, I don't really think we're going to come back at this point.
Yeah.
And even when we're 1-0 up, I don't think that either. Like, earlier in the season, there were a lot of, like, what's the word? Like, bright sparks in terms of like that. Like, Newcastle, for example, when we were 1-0 up, did not deserve it at all. And we hung on to the game. That was like, we never win those sorts of games. We always mess it up in some way. We never, ever win ugly. And I was like, God, this is really, really, really good signs. And they just ended up falling off a cliff. Anytime there's a game like that, we just take our foot off the gas completely, or we can't defend. Like Leicester and Wolves, for example, two goals up with like 5 minutes left, and we end up drawing 2-2. It's, again, identity crisis. We don't know what we're doing, and I'm just going to go back to it. Frustrating. But
it feels like it's a different conversation depending on which fan you speak to. I think the only difference that there was, as I said, in that away end the other day, you could tell that everyone was now on a similar page. I will say, though, there was a lot of fights in the away end. There was a lot of people that are getting a little bit aggressive. Like, the frustrations are coming out, right? Everyone's getting a little bit agitated and thinking, okay, we're watching another load of rubbish, and we all predicted it. And you, as you say, it's predictable. You can see it happening. It reminds me of that Forest result when we were 3-0 up at half time, 3-0 down at half time, sorry. And we're all just saying around this, we're not coming back, are we? It's a shame, but it's happened so often, and everyone would say the same around us. And it was that away end for Brentford where I thought, I was watching people and they're just sort of going, yeah, but you don't remember 40 years ago, you don't remember this. There was a person in front of me and in the away, literally one row in front, turned around to the three boys that are stood behind me. Sorry, next to me. And they're probably, I don't know, same age as me, really, 24, 25. You're just going around and giving him all this, saying, you need to stop with this. You need to stop with this. You're not a real fan of the team. You don't remember anything. You're 40 years ago, I was a fan. And, you're acting like you look like teenagers, he said. And I thought, is this right? Well, why are we making this a thing? Like, why are we now arguing with our own fans with ages? it's ridiculous. Let's remember the Brentford away category is the top bracket.
Yeah.
So everyone there has enough season ticket points to be there because they've gone home and away for the X amount of time. So to then start pointing fingers, playing this I'm a better fan than you game, just really felt a bit sour to me. It was a really strange one.
You say that. I actually saw the exact same thing happen at Leicester. As
Did you?
Yeah, as I was leaving. Obviously, it's a North stand, so it's going to be like proper diehard Brighton fans. And just as I was walking down the stairs, I sort of heard some commotion. People were sort of looking up. There was one guy. They were both about the same age, to be fair, probably like 30s.
Yeah.
One guy was just being like, I don't know why I get going so mad. I don't know why I get so mental. We've got injuries. Look at where we came from. And this other guy was just like, how can you be in any way happy with that performance?
Yeah.
And like, again, we said it last week. You do have to remember where we came from. We do remember where we came from, but look at where we are now. And you get Europe, you spend all this money. We expect it at that point, to be completely honest, and we at least expect better.
Yeah.
And people coming out and saying, "Oh, we were this, we were that," is such a stupid way of looking at things, because just live in the moment and live in the now.
Yeah.
And it's not good enough. Like, it's not. You can't in any way be happy with the performance we had against Brentford, performance we had against Palace, against Leicester. Like, Leicester, fine, we sort of controlled the game at times, but we were never good enough. Good enough. And that's just been the case of it for the past few weeks. So people shouldn't be arguing. It shouldn't be that case. But like, I understand people's frustrations when someone turns around and says, look at where you came from, or people bring up ages and that. It's not about age. You're allowed to be annoyed. And people going, oh, you're 20 years old, you don't know. You pay all this money, you go to all these games, and you are completely well within your right to be upset, to be disappointed, especially when you see a performance like that. And Pedro, embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing. You look at that and like, fine, it's completely fine to be annoyed. And people really need to stop getting on people's backs about it.
Yeah.
It really, really, really pisses me off. And like, saw it. People complaining about, like, even when Houghton was there and people were like calling for his head and saying, we weren't necessarily calling for his head, as you've already said, but like, people saying he's run his course.
There's a little bit of acceptance that we're at the end of that era, sort of thing.
Yeah. But like, it was never anything bad. But there were people being like, how the hell can you sack him? How do you want to sack him?
I remember this.
A lot of pundits were saying it as well.
Yes, mate, big time.
Yeah, but look at what happened after it.
Yeah.
This is why people are like, we're at that next point now. We're at this point of acceptance where we are better than what we are now and what we're playing. And that's why people are getting frustrated and getting pissed off, because it's not good enough.
That's a really nice analogy, actually, because you're right. At the end of that Houghton reign, everyone was tetchy because everyone, we stayed up in the Premier League. Just.
Only because the other teams were worse.
That Cardiff season was genuinely, they had times there where they probably could have even got ahead of us. And I think that Palace beating them to this day still feels really strange. And we look back and thank them. But you're right, at the end of that season, it was a surprise to see him go, but it wasn't a surprise in the sense of where we're at as a football club. And then we appoint Graham Potter, and it was like, it's the next step. You're going from them being a relegation side that stays up and hangs around 16th place to thinking, we're better than 16th place. What's the point of playing for 16th every year? Let's go to 10th. And we did that. And we've done that. Okay, maybe we progressed a little bit quickly and we went to 6th too early. I don't think... And Mia made a really good comment to me, actually. There's no such thing as success being too fast. Because if success was too fast... there's a reason why the success has been so quick, and that's because what was worked remarkably well and no one else could keep up. To slow a process down allows competition to get around you, and I think that's what we've let happen this year. We shouldn't have let it happen. We should have capitalised, and that's why we're so frustrated. And instead, we've now got Newcastle, Villa, Forest, all with much bigger budgets than us, but we've never been the ones to be competing with budget. The difference is actually we were actually one of the richest clubs in the league this year.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. They've got bigger wage bills and etc. I can get that, but we built our success and built our last 5-6 years on the fact that we have an owner that spotted this gap, that spotted this way of making the football club grow quicker than anybody else's. When you then stagnate that and let everyone else catch up, and now everyone's all thinking data-driven analysis, everyone's all thinking, I don't want to sound like I ever would back Chelsea in any scenario, because I don't. But when they're then buying everyone and recruiting in the same ponds as you, and you're now all of a sudden, no matter who you look for, Chelsea are going to be there. It's not just Chelsea eventually, because they'll realise that Brighton are doing it right. And whether we like it or not, the clubs with the bigger budget will get the players, they'll get the managers, they'll get whoever we want, because they've got the money, they've got the status, and that forever keeps you below it. So slowing down the success or feeling like it's happened too quickly is just a sign of complacency and nothing else.
Yeah, you say, we've allowed teams to get to that point as well. Fulham and Bournemouth, for example. I mean, Fulham haven't obviously been all that bad for a few seasons, but they've never really threatened that much for Europe, I think. But Bournemouth, look how good they've been this season.
Yes, good example.
And we've let them catch up to us, and we shouldn't be where we are. Leicester, Wolves, already said it, and Palace as well shouldn't have let those games end up like they have. Drop points, as always. Classic Brighton. Ipswich earlier in the season, 0-0. Shouldn't have done that. Southampton dropped points again. And even City, for example, a few weeks ago, we probably could have won that. Probably should have won that.
Yeah.
And I feel like both goals were pretty avoidable. One was a penalty, if I remember rightly, and then Marmoush's was just got done in midfield. But you look at how many points we've dropped, and you look at the teams around us and where we are, we should be much higher up than that. I mean, Forest 7-0, fine, right? That happened. That's done. But the fact that we've let these teams catch up to us is a sign that you've already said that the team's going to catch up to us. It
gives them the opportunity to build.
Yeah.
And I think when you then look at a side like Wolves, who I think is a really good example of a side that's turned it round since Vitor Pereira's come in. And I actually watched Vitor Pereira's first interview and I thought, cool, this guy sounds the business. I think they're on the back of 5 straight wins in a row. I think they were 19th when he took over, 18th when they took over. They're now clear of relegation by a long way. And I saw a Wolves fan said today, saying, I mean, I know Dave, I shout Talking Wolves, is a great guy. And he was saying during a period of time that it just didn't feel like he even wanted to go to games because it was so stale. The club felt like it had run its course. Gary O'Neill was a good passion merchant manager, but wasn't enough to ever put Wolves where they could be. When they were in Europe a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I think Vitor Pereira's come in and he's just said, and they've all just said, they want to go to games again. It's given a new vibe. Everything's different. Everything's rosy. Everything's great. They all have this new bought in, they've made them fall in love with football again. And Pereira, he goes to all of the pubs after the game. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, he calls it points, first points, then pints, I think.
Good lad.
So he goes into all the, I think he was in Wetherspoons yesterday after beating United
Really?
in Manchester with all the Wolves fans. Just
Legend.
But you know what I mean? The connection. And then he was asked about it and he said, oh yeah, I just want to spend time with it. I know that Hürzeler was in the pub at the beginning of the season. I remember that. So I'm not saying he's not. But I'm saying, do you remember then when Potter went and we were all sort of going, well, we were a bit scared to begin with, but we then looked back on it thinking, God, we were gaslit for years.
Yeah.
Remember, we were like, this is just Brighton. This is what we are. This is the history lesson. This is where we come from. This is what we are. This is the classic Brighton. We throw away stuff. We just bottle it. We can't score goals. And that's just what we are. De Zerbi come in, mate, we're banging goals every single week. Every single week.
So good.
And it was like, what's happened here? And everyone was taken into this new idea, this new passion. I just don't feel like I have that this season. And I don't want to be really harsh, but there's nothing to buy into for me. There's no clear style of play. There's no identity. I don't look at Brighton and say that's what Brighton to me is. Brighton to me is the team that pushes boundaries. Brighton plays beautiful football no matter what. We're the team to watch. We're the team that's different. We're the best recruiters in the world and we can make some of the best players in the world. And we just lost it. And I think that level of, it sounds cringy, but that level of aura and that way that comes about all stems from the top. And I just don't think that we've got that under Fabian Hürzeler. And I'm not doubting that Fabian Hürzeler could be a good manager in the future. And I don't actually would like to say, I wouldn't put the blame on him for where we are. I actually just don't think he should have been appointed in the first place. I think it was too soon for him. And I think he should have been given time to build his talent. He just got promoted out of Bundesliga too. Fantastic achievement. Now let's get you into the Bundesliga. Let's see you compete at the top level in Germany. You know, let's see what you can do with that St. Pauli side. And don't get me wrong, he ain't going to say no to the job. Why would he? It's a massive job for him.
Yeah.
You know, it's completely fair enough. You're taking that on any day. But again, I just don't think he was ready to come in and be a process manager here and trust the process, trust, you know, this is what we're going to do in 3-4 years' time. We don't have 3-4 years' time. You know, Mitoma's going to go. João Pedro's going to go. And that's where we're at. And I think I really feel sorry for him in a way, because I just don't think that this should have been his job yet. Maybe this could have been his job in 10 years' time when he's established himself in Germany. Brighton are fighting. I just don't think it was ready for him now. And he's in an unfortunate position of maybe he's just not being bought into. Maybe he doesn't have that clear identity. Maybe he doesn't even know who Fabian Hürzeler is yet. But I think he could be, but I just don't think it's now. And I don't think it's here.
Thing is, we've seen like what he can do
exactly
at top times in the season, but there's game management problems. That's what it is. That's what
it's
what
naivety
I've noticed.
in his own admission.
Naivety, game management, it's all that sort of stuff. And again, it's frustrating. Like, you're 2-0 up, you go 2-2, and every single time, if we're 2-0 up now, I'm just like, I don't even think we're going to win this, because we just don't know how to control. We don't know how to control a game. But you can see that we have known how to control games, such as with Newcastle, like I already touched on. And it goes back to my point of this whole podcast, of how frustrating it is.
Yeah.
Just watching it constantly and seeing how good we can be, but then not being.
It's a misalignment in time. Hürzeler's time was not now for Brighton's time.
Yeah. And
that's just what's happened. De Zerbi was ahead of the time that we got him in. We're under Potter, we were here. De Zerbi took us to there. Under De Zerbi at the end, maybe we were about here. We regressed a slight touch because of the recruitment. Probably you would blame it on not having enough players in the injury crisis we were on. If you then kept it stable for another year, I would have loved to see what we could have done this season, if I'm honest. And it didn't. And we didn't maybe bring in, as I said, I think it was quite obvious we wanted Kieran McKenna. It was quite obvious we interviewed so many other managers and wanted so many other managers. We even wanted Potter back at one point. It was obvious that he wasn't first choice, and that's why I do feel sorry for him in a weird way.
Yeah.
It wasn't his job yet. And I think that's the trouble with the situation he's in. And we're just at that point where the appointment and the status of the club and the status of the squad is all wrong. And it's all reflected, I think. I think football's, as I said, I think it's corrected itself. And realistically, we are where we should be.
Yeah. Going off that, you got to say sort of like right manager, but wrong time sort of thing.
Possibly,
I think.
Possibly. You could say right manager, as I said. It's the trouble with a manager is, let's look at it on a business point of view, right? And I think when you're buying a player, like let's use Moises Caicedo. When you buy a player like Caicedo for 5 million from Independiente de Valle, right? You bring him in, and you then have to loan him out. You bring him in again, and he comes into the first team. He sets the world alight. You sell him for plus 100 million profit, 110 million profit. That is a fantastic model if you want to start building the club's finances. The difference, however, is the most expensive manager team of all time in the Premier League, anyway, is Graham Potter and Co. to Chelsea.
Yeah,
and that was 20 million. You don't put stocks into managers because the fees aren't high enough to then justify that. 20 million, you could probably make that on a sale of Simon Adingra, for example, right? It wouldn't bear justifying taking a gamble on a manager and hope it works out, because realistically, all you're actually doing is giving them, I guess, a work experience, essentially. You're giving them an opportunity to prove themselves. And the impact of a manager going wrong versus the impact of a player going wrong is stark difference. If you bring in a player for 5 million that's young, and they flop, so what? Loan them out for a bit. It's not going to make a huge impact on the football club. Whereas if you bring in a manager that's not quite ready yet and he flops, the entire squad's going to have to suffer for that. And the club status is going to have to suffer for that. And that's why the risk and reward is actually just way too high. Maybe it was a gamble that Bloom tried, as he is a gambling man, and it just didn't work, and we have to accept it for what it is. But I think if you're then saying, he could be a good manager in 3, 4, 5 years' time, great, I'm sure he could be. But you don't put that gamble on a manager. You put that gamble on the player because of everything of that. On the finance, on the impact of the squad. If you have a player fly off the roof and he's absolutely unbelievable, it's great. But if he isn't, you just drop him. You've got someone else to cover for him. You can't do that with a manager. And I think that's the trouble we've probably got.
Yeah, I don't really see where we're going at this point, to be honest. We've stagnated, as we said. Like, you want to see... you already said, it'd be fine if we had we were stable for a season. We haven't really been stable, have we? We've been so up and down. As I say, we've seen glimpses of what Hürzeler wants, and I feel like a lot more fans have turned on him. I'm not necessarily Hürzeler out, right?
The thing is, I don't want to say I'm Hürzeler out because I feel like I'm turning negative. I just don't think he's the manager for us now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
There's a lot of people really, really, really calling for his head. And saying, especially after Forest, there were people calling for his head, which is fair enough. We were 7-0 down. We lost 7-0. And I mean, a lot of Brighton's fan base is very reactionary. I mean, Leicester, I'll be completely honest, I booed. So I booed. And then I came out of it and I was like, it's a bit stupid why I did that, but I am pissed off.
To be fair, mate, everyone booed in the Brentford away end.
Yeah,
the entire away end started singing, you don't know what you're doing. And then where's our striker gone? Yeah,
but but that is completely fair. You make a stupid substitution like that, you got to, at that point you got to respect it. I'll be honest, it was ridiculous, and I would love to see us turn it round, but I don't know even if we get Europe, I don't know what we're going to be like next season. Then.
That's the trouble. It's taking a longer view. You get Europe, great. I really hope we do. Obviously, I want the best for the club all the time. That's the point of why I'm so angry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you do get it, are we going to be all right?
If we get it, we've still got all these injury problems, and who's to say that's not going to carry on next season?
Yeah.
We've got extra games.
And we won't have the players there. As much as it's hard to say, unless we get Europa League, I think maybe you could convince a couple to stay. I have a gut feeling it's not based on anything, but I just feel like João Pedro will go. I think, to be honest, he's almost made his bed with that elbow, really.
Yeah, I just don't think he's got this sort of... I feel like he cares about the club quite a lot, and he has this sort of passion. I mean, he throws his arms about.
It's in the right place, I guess. It's coming from the right place, but it's coming out wrong. And I guess that's, again, it's probably a thing where, we just don't know how to manage that level of ego yet. It's that level of, not to say he's got a big ego, but you don't know. The players are different, right? Some of them react differently to other things. If you've got a player in training who's harder to manage than others, then that can get a bit out of control, as we've seen in the past. So it's one of them. The
whole team's getting frustrated at this point, and it came to a head with that elbow. I mean, he tried it earlier in the season.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I mean, I have literally no idea how he wasn't sent off.
No, neither.
Because I know he didn't make any contact, but
it's dangerous. That was. That could have really done some damage.
Yeah, it was bad, wasn't it?
Really bad. So yeah, I don't justify João Pedro at all. I'm not going to bother because doesn't deserve it for that. Unfortunately,
embarrassing, isn't it?
It is terrible. So yeah, if it's a Brentford fan trying to see if we're back in João, I'm not, because it was poor. But yeah, I hope that we turn it around. We've still got a few games left. I think West Ham's going to be a big game. Graham Potter coming home.
Don't predict anything. It's not gone well the past
Wait, I said it'd be a low-scoring game. We lost 4-2. I'm not going to predict it.
Yeah, it's not predicted.
Let's just see what happens. I'll stream it.
we need the fans up for it.
We need everyone up.
We need everyone up for it. And Graham Potter being back might help, right?
And the thing is, right. Last thing, sorry, I will say, the fans, right, take a lot of criticism, I think. And, we get a little bit of a hard time for not maybe putting so much energy into games. But you get energy, you get passion, you get all that when there's something to get energy and passion and all that about. That's just how it works. If you're playing a game high tempo and you're creating a lot of chances, you hit the post about 3 times or you score 2 goals in the first half, the atmosphere is going to be buzzing.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. If you start the game, you start passing it around for 40 minutes and do nothing, then concede before half time, no one's going to be happy. So that's just how it is. So that's,
And then when we can go forward and get a goal,
and then we pass it backwards
we just
again. You're
pass backwards.
Well, that's the end of that excitement. So it works both ways. I think. But yes, I do agree. We need some energy on at the Amex, and yeah, I think Graham Potter's enough of a reason to want to beat him. I feel like I'm a bit over it at this point, to be honest.
I'm a little bit over it, but I still think he's a prick. So
fair enough. Luke, you've been an absolute pleasure, mate. It was a good little therapy session. This wasn't it? I feel like we've just got everything of the last 3 days off our chest. But yeah, hopefully it all is okay. I don't know. We'll see what people think. But I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you've all resonated as well with our therapy session, I suppose you would call it, and the way we've tried to be fair. I think we've been fair. I mean, we've not been we've been critical of the right things. At the end of the day, I want the best for this football club. And whether the best for this football club sounds negative or whether it sounds positive in certain moments isn't linear. But yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you come to Earth and Stars. Have the fish and chips, as I've plugged every single time since I've been here.
Last roast service this Sunday, so make sure you book in.
Last roast service this Sunday, so make sure you do that. Luke, absolute pleasure, as I said before, and we'll see you hopefully after we've won a game, which would be quite nice. Anyway, goodbye.